Great to have you on the programme. Thanks for coming on.
Hello.
You're here to talk about GB Energy. I'm ashamed to say, kind of grappling with what it is and what it's going to do. And at this point, I'm not sure if that's a me problem or a you problem, right? So you say GB Energy will own, manage and operate clean power projects.
Yes.
It will be a company that will generate energy in its own right.
Yes.
So what does manage and operate mean? Does that mean that GB Energy is going to be an energy supplier, so you can get them to supply your heating and electricity?
So you won't be buying your energy directly from GB Energy. That is something that a whole different set of companies do. Where GB Energy will be is in the business of generating the energy in the first place. So I think it's a really significant day today, I should say, the publishing of the bill to set up GB Energy, for it to be independent, for it to be based in Scotland, for the Secretary of State to have the powers to instruct it and set its strategic direction. But if you look at what we're also announcing today, the relationship between GB Energy and the Crown Estate, I think that gives an example of some of the types of things that GB Energy will be doing. So at the moment, Crown Estate own all the seabed. And we want to see lots more offshore wind, floating offshore wind. So we've got this partnership with the Crown Estate where we will go in and we will help to do the planning, to set up the grid connections, to help with the study of the seabed, because you've got to look at marine life and all kinds of things like this, so that when we go to the private sector and say, are you interested in being involved in offshore wind or floating offshore wind, we've already created an answer for them in terms of putting those grid connections in, putting the planning in and doing the analysis. So it will be a much more attractive proposition to the private sector. And we think with this relationship, I should just say, that we could crowd in £60 billion of private sector investment.
On the Crown Estate, because you're kind of touting it as the answer to all of this, if you like, and making legal changes so it can borrow, use land, etc., etc. Could you expand its remit to cover housing, for example, which means meeting your 1.5 million homes target on time?
Well, this relationship is about GB Energy. So this relationship is different. It is focused on what we can do with offshore
in theory,
wind.
Expand it to other targets that are very important to this government, like housing?
So the bill at the moment, there's two bills. One is setting up Great British Energy. The other is giving powers to the Crown Estate. And there will be the ability, for example, for them to buy all the digital kit they need to look at the offshore wind, the seabed, the marine seabed.
Yeah, I know
so they'll be able
that's
to
not
buy
quite answering my question, which
kit.
is about housing.
They do housing, they can invest, they will be able to borrow and invest. Their asset base is £16 billion, and a lot of that is land as well as sea. So they do own a lot of property and they will be able to, on the back of the value of those assets, they'll be able to borrow and they'll be able to invest.
OK. One of the... this is obviously one of your big things about to try and push your climate change agenda. One of the big voices in GB Energy is Chris Stark, who, of course, used to work at the Climate Change Commission. Now, they released a report last week saying only a third of the emissions reductions required to achieve your 2030 target are currently covered, in their words, by credible plans.
Yes.
I mean, that's a blow to you, isn't it? Or
have
they got it wrong?
It's really stark, and I think it's not dissimilar to quite a lot of what we are seeing in government departments in terms of promises made where there just wasn't the infrastructure, the policy, the money to fulfil those promises. And we are going to have to work really hard to meet these challenges. Now, what we are saying...
You're blaming the Conservatives for what they're reporting now, then?
So we're not as ready as we should be. That is absolutely true. And we know that applies across all kinds of different policies, all kinds of different situations we've inherited from this government. But we believe if government is using all the levers at their that they can, that we can get to a point of clean power by 2030. Now, the point of this isn't just, and this is really important, isn't just about climate, it's about giving people more money in their pockets. It's about making sure they have more agency, better jobs, better skills. It's a whole raft of policies to make people's lives better, which is the only point of this government.
So you're talking about using all of the levers to get there, and you admit that, you're not in the place that you need to be to meet those targets. So why on earth, then, did the ban in new petrol and diesel cars, why wasn't that not in the King's speech? So in your manifesto, wasn't it, that you pledged to restore it, to 2030, but then it didn't make it into the speech?
So it is undoubtedly true that the government's change of position a few months ago that meant that car companies had been told they had to reach a certain target and then all of a sudden they had to reach a different one is undoubtedly true. That has had a really bad impact on those car companies, without question. And we've seen that in some of the results today from some of the manufacturers of automotives. And we need to fix that. We need to reach our targets, which is still our intention, absolutely. But we are working with all the manufacturing companies, all the car manufacturers, to make sure this is possible. Because, look, we know we have to get to electric vehicles. We know that that is the way that it has to be done. But when you've got one hand tied behind your back because you've had a government saying to people, oh, actually, you don't need to buy them yet.
You're not using all the levers of government, though, are you? That's my question. You're saying that, the only way we can get to those targets is if we use all the levers of government. Well, there is a whopping great big lever there on, petrol and diesel cars, and you're not pulling it.
So this is still our policy. What I will say is I am the automotive minister. We have been having meetings virtually every day in the last 3 weeks looking at how can we pull the right levers, because you have unintended consequences if you do one thing and you end up with the car manufacturers doing something else, like restricting the supply of diesel and petrol cars, for example, in order to meet. So these are difficult tasks, but it is true that the government has made this situation much worse, that we have quite a lot that we need to try and fix, but the automotive industry is just as much a part of the transition as all the other industries, and we are going to use absolutely every lever to make sure we make people better off, give them good jobs, give them skills, opportunities, and that's the only purpose that we have in government.
OK. A big thing that I'm sure many of our viewers, including me, feeling quite excited about is the Olympics and the start of the Olympics. It's the opening ceremony, of course, very shortly. They're doing it a bit differently this year, along the Seine rather than in the Olympic Stadium, like many people have done previously. Question marks about protests and security. What's Keir Starmer's plans? Is he going to go to the ceremony?
Oh gosh,
Do you know?
I don't know whether he is or not. I worked on the Olympics in a previous life in 2012, and I think everybody says that it was pretty much the most spectacular moment we've had as a country, and that's where we want to get back to. But whether the Prime Minister has time to go, I'm sure he absolutely wants to. I'm sure he will if he can. He loves sport, as you know, and I'm sure he'll love to go. But whether he's going or not, I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, you've got your Olympics hat on, and obviously your kind of Home Office hat as well. Do you think it would be a bit of a security risk to do it along the Seine?
Well, I know that when we did the Olympics in 2012, it was a moment where government departments worked so well together that we had mapped out every single possible security risk, because we had sport in all kinds of different venues across the country. We had the torch going all around the country, so there were huge risks, but we managed them by working really well together. We've got real expertise in this country, and it's difficult. Obviously, the world is a different place. We have a lot of dangerous geopolitical situations, but I'm sure that all the different countries that are competing with the Games, they all work together on security.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.